Large cappuccino. Orders up. Welcome back. Hello, guys. How are you guys doing today? Pretty good?
Doing good. Weirdest intro ever.
Roll with it.
Redo
All right, listen. We have Michael and Francis here.
No,
My name
redo
is
it.
Braden.
We're redoing it.
Welcome to
We're redoing it.
Mental
Stop.
Breakdown plus Francis.
Welcome to Francis having a mental breakdown.
Save that clip.
I don't know. I'm
What's
crying now. Okay. Yeah, you know what? We'll just leave it in.
No.
It'll be a fun way to start. But yeah, welcome back, guys. So today we are going to talk about mental toughness and mental resilience. I think this is tends to be kind of a hot topic with some of our athletes about being mentally tough. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how to kind of get that mindset that you want as an elite athlete. And so we're going to kind of break down some of the differences and similarities between mental toughness and mental resilience, and kind of how we talk through those topics with some of our athletes. And yeah. So what would you guys say is like your definition to mental toughness?
I guess we'll start over here. I honestly, I just like would summarize it as like being able to like grind through something, obviously from a mental standpoint, but being able to push through a difficult experience, a difficult time. Like, you know, obviously we know in sports nothing ever goes as planned. Mm-hmm. So like being able to push through something when something isn't necessarily going your way, being mentally tough kind of through it all is kind of like how I would define it in a way, or at least summarize it in a way.
Yeah.
With mental toughness. So.
Sure. What about you?
It's a simple 5-word definition.
Oh boy.
5 words. No, but I always there's like a lot of different definitions out there, and I think there's some really complex ones that are really good. There's some simple ones that are really good, and the way that I always just try to teach it, just because I think it's simple, 5 words is usually easy-ish to remember for the most part for people, is the ability to overcome blank. And then that you can like insert what you want there. Is it, you know, challenges? Is it obstacles? Is it adversity? Is it, you know, the other team? Is it an injury? Like, what is that? What is that blank for you? So you can kind of fill in that gap. But I think the interesting thing that like Braden kind of alluded to, it's like, it's always a grind, or you always have to be gritty or tenacious with it. But I think the biggest thing too is, I feel like, which is why I think mental resilience is maybe the better thing, which we'll get into later, but mental toughness, you need it when the odds are stacked against you. Whereas I feel like that's maybe one of the things we'll get on later with like mental resilience. That's like constant and consistent. Right. It's not like we don't have it now, I finally need to try to find it again. Mm-hmm. It's always kind of been there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I like your definition of it, the ability to overcome blank, whatever that is. And I think I kind of play off of that a little bit. But yeah, when I would talk with athletes about what mental toughness is, I feel like it's how you face your challenges, like how you go into it. I think a lot of it has to do with your confidence and trust in yourself in facing that challenge or facing that adversity that kind of comes up in your sport. And like you said, when we kind of get to that resiliency side to it, I think that is more of a consistency type of mindset, and not only facing challenges, but also like coming back from challenges. But yeah, when it comes to mental toughness, I think that's a very, I feel like a lot of athletes know that term and have slightly different definitions for it. Not that one's necessarily right or wrong, but yeah, hopefully that kind of gives like a good picture of how we kind of define it with our athletes. But
absolutely. And I think the cool thing that you see now, not only like the sports psychology literature for those that read, but for those that read that, you know, research. But like the difference is, it's cool to see, because we have literally these 2 pieces of paper in front of us, and one's toughness, the other one says resilience on it. Right. And the switch just over time that you've seen just in reading research in the literature, but also the way you see it with interviews with coaches. It used to just be mental toughness.
Yeah.
And then now we can kind of switch over to this mental resilience. And you see these coaches in these post-game pressers. It's like, oh, these guys weren't, mentally tough today. They weren't there. They were, they didn't have it at the end, versus now it's like, they were the more resilient team, or we weren't as resilient as we needed to be today. And I think that's the kind of cool shift that you've seen probably over the last 5 to 10 years with these topics, and why these terms are almost used interchangeably now.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, like the word toughness, like years ago, just kind of had that idea of almost you can't show emotions, or you can't like you can't be human, almost like you just gotta be tough and you just gotta grind through it, kind of thing, and
push through injuries or pain or things that just you don't need to necessarily.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's cool that we've kind of shifted into more of that resilience type of terminology. But yeah, so I mean, getting into mental toughness, how do you guys kind of talk about that with your athletes? Like if someone were to come in and they want to work on their mental toughness, what does that kind of look like in conversation with athletes?
You want me to say? I can take it.
All right. Yeah. Let's go another row.
This.
Right.
Explaining what this is. My 10-minute segment. No, so there's a book out there, really cool read, 10-Minute Toughness, for all ages. So it's easy to get all the info that you need out of it, but really cool. And it kind of breaks down this into steps, because mental toughness and being resilient and fighting through whatever you have to fight through, or overcoming what you have to overcome, is a series and a bunch of different mental skills kind of blended into one, rather than it just being, this is what it is. So I think that's the really cool part with this, is you have to take bits and pieces. And that's what this book did by Dr. Jason Selk. And it was a really cool read. Gets into the fact of, finding what your definition is, right? You have to define these topics out. That's always the thing I do first with athletes, is whatever topic we have, I want you to come up with your own definition. I'll give you whatever definition I have, or the really sciencey one, but I always like to go with theirs usually when we do it, without using the words, in the definition. That's a big challenge sometimes. What is confidence? Confidence. What is mental toughness? Being mentally tough.
Your
Genius.
coach say it all the time.
Yeah, be mentally tough. How? Right?
Yeah,
and I think that's
that?
the biggest thing, or like, you know it and you can see it, but there's ways to actually build it. And I think that's a really cool thing. And that's what this book breaks down. It starts with taking these, deep breathing, the centering breath, as they call it, following. There's so many different breathing techniques out there if you're to Google them on how to stay calm and relaxed. But that's the point of it. It's to get you calm and relaxed, or also maybe just to kind of hype you up a little bit more. I know the episode that we just recorded before this with emotional control, like listening to music, you can listen to different types of music. You can also, change the way you breathe to kind of almost in a way hyperventilate, and that gets your heart rate going versus kind of calming it down. But with this, to be mentally tough, the first step, right? Because usually you have to overcome something. Usually it's a negative thing, is to relax. And then from there, it's to use certain positive self-talk statements, whether it's, you're using mantras, whether you're using performance cues, whatever it is, but just trying to then hype yourself up to start facing this challenge, right? Can you overcome this? We're in the middle of the college football playoff right now, right? There's been a lot of good games, maybe not a lot of good games, but a lot of challenges that had to be overcome. And right, how can you try to face those and want to try to come back from the deficits or the leads that are there? And as we've seen watching some of those games, some teams are better at it than others. Some individuals and players are better at it than others. Then you go into this personal highlight reels. So finding those moments where you've competed at your best. And this should be done before the competition. This is hard to do in the competition, to start thinking through these things. So beforehand, if you know those highlight reel moments, or as an athlete, maybe you're later on in high school and you have these, reels created because you want to play in college, then you can look back at these things and just to remember,
just watch the videos of them. Yeah.
Remember competing at your best in as much detail as you can remember. What was working? What did you eat that morning? What did you do? What was different, maybe, to try to see if there's any similarities. Usually there isn't, but then comparing and contrasting those moments. And one of the cool stories that I say off of this with a lot of athletes is, Russell Wilson, after he threw the game-stealing interception in Super Bowl 49, the loss to the Patriots, had to go back.
I had to like dial it back.
Yeah.
Like, hang on a second.
Had to then next season come back and play, and a lot of teams have that Super Bowl hangover effect, as it's referred to. And he came back and had a statistically best season ever at the time. Signed the largest contract extension in NFL history for a quarterback. The money has since doubled.
Interesting.
And
contact.
that offseason with his, video coordinator, with his mental conditioning coach that he had at a rented beach house in Malibu, which is nice. They watched just his highlight reel, all of his game-winning drives from high school to college, and then in the pros so far that he had.
That's cool.
Yeah, just to get him to remember what this is like and not get that hangover effect, which then, partially maybe helped him to have a better mindset in the off season. So from there, it's, knowing your why, your motivation. I feel like we talk about that almost every single episode. Know why you do the sport you're doing, and then breathe again. And then we add a little piece on this worksheet about just being grateful and showing gratitude, just to have that step back. But that's usually how I walk through. It's a cool little worksheet. It's called 10-minute toughness. Takes a little longer to fill it out maybe the first time, but once you go through it, it should take around 10 minutes to try to picture these different things. But you're incorporating these different mental skills of, this conscious breathing, positive self-talk, visualization, motivation. What is that? So that's usually how I kind of walk through it.
Yeah. And I think just to kind of play off of that too, I do a version of that too, of that 10-minute toughness. And I like it because it's kind of a set routine that athletes can do before games, whether it's the night before or on the bus ride over or during warm-ups, whatever it is. And I like to kind of make it adaptable of it doesn't have to necessarily be 10 minutes. You can make it 2 minutes. You can make it a 20-minute routine, however you want to kind of like go about it. And you can kind of emphasize parts of it that will stick with you more. So if you're really into that mental imagery and that visualizing piece, then really kind of hone in on maybe your top 5 career highlights. If you're more of a self-talk person, then maybe you might want a couple different mantras that you can kind of play off of, and things that you can kind of think on even throughout the game that help you kind of bring yourself back to like this mental toughness mindset. And that identity piece that kind of gets your motivation going. I like that because it helps athletes almost kind of see a bigger picture of what's happening. And I kind of use that as a segue to resilience, because it's not just about facing your challenge today, but it's also being able to come back the next week or the next day and to continue to try next season, just like you were saying. So I kind of play a little bit off of that routine as well.
Yeah, I mean, kind of as Michael mentioned, like there's a lot of different mental skills that you can use for mental toughness, or just kind of the topic in general. But I think the one that I've used recently, but I feel like I use a lot, is just being able to, like, an athlete presents like an issue, right? Like where they come into a session seeking like, hey, how do you gain mental toughness? Or a coach wants to talk about, hey, our team went through this. We want to become more mentally tough. And I think where I normally start with it is for them to acknowledge their failure right away, because I feel like a lot of athletes like to run from a lot of that stuff. And like, in order to be mentally tough, you have to be able to acknowledge, there's good things that happen in a game. There's also bad things that happen. So not just saying, hey, here's all the good stuff. And, it's always obviously good to look back. I really like that Russell Wilson thing too. Probably, must have helped him somewhat in the offseason, because he did have a pretty good year, obviously a really good year after that. But we're not going to talk about the Denver seasons. But with Seattle, he did good. But being able to acknowledge, there's failure along the way too, and not just always running from it, but acknowledging it, but also then moving on to hopefully being what it is, more mentally tough going forward. So, I really like that point, because that tends to come up a lot with athletes too, is that fear of failure, and like wanting to, when you want to get that mindset, that positive mindset, or being mentally tough, that's a really good point of like being able to face those times where you have failed or you have made mistakes, and accepting that that's part of the game, that's part of the sport, that's gonna happen on your journey, and you can be mentally tough, or you can be confident even through those moments. So that's really cool.
I think that perspective shift that you said is really important too, and I think this is where maybe we get in the conversation about why we shifted to resilience from toughness, because I'm going to bring up reference. We should have done a mental breakdown episode of the college football playoff. But when you watched Texas and Arizona State's down 16 entering that fourth quarter, and I was like, all right, like, this is weird. I looked at the stats. I was like, all right, like, Texas must be pretty dominating all the categories, and they weren't. Right. ASU was dominating the yardage, the time of possession, less penalty yards, no turnovers whatsoever. It's just a kind of poor special teams play. I think that's really what did them in for the most part at one point. And you can kind of use that, right? Like, if we said like this, and this is the exact game plan we're going for, guys, like, we're on track, we're running more. They ran almost twice the amount of plays with them, I think, at one point entering that fourth quarter too. Like, the defense is tired. This is what we need. Like, if we said this is exactly where we want to be. And that's where you can use that to, as a coach, maybe to propel your team forward, to be like, listen, everything is going exactly the plan that we wanted. It's not indicated on the scoreboard right now, or the result that we're looking for yet. Right. And I think that's a big kind of cool, powerful tool. This is that, like, this mental toughness and resilience is like to build that power of yet, like, it's yet to happen.
Yeah, keep pressing on. That game is just a great example of a lot of different things. Like, you go from both ways. That one Arizona State player, I'm trying to think of his name.
Cam Scadaboo.
Yeah, like, and then you go to like Texas, like just Quentin Ewers. There's like stuff before the game that the quarterback from Arizona State was saying some stuff, and Quentin Ewers was more so handling it a different way. Like, you can go from both sides of that game, just like pull things for sure. But a great
you go, you think you have it, right? You think Arizona State, you got the targeting call, you punt. Then you're Texas, you get one field goal chance, you get another field goal chance, miss both, and then you finally, then you fight back and forth in these crazy overtimes, the crazy overtime rules that college football bestow upon us. But this is where I think the cool thing of this is why I think mental resiliency, or just resilience, is the better word now than toughness, because toughness is draining. And we just did a podcast recording on emotional control, and toughness drains all of those kind of emotions, and you'll be physically and emotionally and mentally kind of drained by the end. Whereas resilience, it kind of is more of an uplifting word rather than something that's going to kind of be like, well, I have to give it my all now. Let's empty the gas tank. Resilience will still let you kind of have that feeling of like, we're going to empty the gas tank, but I'm going to feel a lot better leaving it versus being a lot more drained, because then different sports, right? You kind of, some people might have to go back out a little bit later. If you're at a tournament, you have multiple things in one day, you might be done just because you had that gritty, tenacious comeback. And then the next round, it was easy sweep for the other guy.
Right. Yeah, I definitely like to think of resiliency as like that longevity with what you're doing, and not just, like you said, like the gas pedal, like putting everything out there in like one moment of it, but being able to come back and being able to adapt to change, and having that mindset of it's not happening yet, but I'm still working towards it, and we're still fighting for it. But I also kind of feel like I'm on the episode of Mental Breakdown as you guys talk about football.
She definitely watched the game. She 100% watched it.
But getting more into mental resiliency, I think there are like 4 main points that we kind of bring out when it comes to like being resilient. And that first point is being able to adapt to change and being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And I think that can apply to so many different things throughout your sport, whether it's before, during, or after. If it's before, if warm-ups don't go the way you want it to, if you don't have enough time or you have too much time, being able to adapt to that change and still have that energy going into the game. If the game is not going the way you want it to, whether you guys are down 20 points in the first 2 minutes, or like whatever kind of happens, it's like, okay, let me adapt, let me learn, and let me kind of be flexible, have that flexible mindset throughout it.
That's probably honestly for just resiliency in general, just like something that I just talked a lot about with my football athletes over the fall, kind of even going into the winter a little bit during their seasons. Is like, you can watch as much film as you want. Like you might think an opponent in and out, then you step on the field and they could be running a cover 2 the whole year, and next thing you know, they're running cover zero and they're like putting an extra linebacker in there possibly for a blitz. It's like you can watch all this.
You knew that, right?
You can watch all this film you want, but if you're not able to adapt to what is changing in the game, you're going to struggle immensely. So being able to just adapt in general, it's like from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, just kind of seeing what you kind of have in front of you, especially as a quarterback or any really position. I feel like honestly that's probably one of my favorites. The adapting to change is really big. I feel like it's like any sport.
Yeah.
And the next point I think really kind of ties nicely with the toughness routine that you have there, but being able to kind of stay hopeful. So whether that's like self-talk or reminding yourself of like personal highlights, but still kind of having that positive mindset and hope for future outcomes. Like there's still a light at the end of the tunnel, right? I think that just across the board is a good mindset to have. You never want to be in the middle of the game and be like, oh, I'm going to give up because it's not going to happen. We're down 15 points and we're never going to catch them, right? Like being able to stay hopeful is still being able to fight and work towards the outcome that you want to see. So yeah. And
what's the last one?
Two more.
Two more.
The next one's managing your emotions, which we have an episode that we talked about just before this about how to do that and how to understand that emotions are normal and it's okay to have those, and to figure out what your triggers are and how you can use those emotions to better your performance. But the last one is that learning aspect for resiliency, being able to learn from the past and again, kind of adapt to change, but learning patterns or learning what works, what doesn't, and adjusting how you need to moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, reflection's huge. And I think a lot of just athletes that I talk to, and they have those, not the outcome they were looking for, the competition they wanted. It's like, I didn't really think about it. It's like, well, we need to look at it because there's things to learn from it. And there's a lot of important things that you can kind of get out of those, those losses or tough moments, or, were there some things that you were doing right towards the end that maybe you could have been doing earlier, but like, that's important to know for maybe next time in this certain matchup possibly. So I think that's something I really like about that is just, you have to have that reflective piece of learning, but also learning in the moment too, and trying to problem solve. And I think that's the toughest thing sometimes when we need to be in this mentally tough state or this resiliency state is, can I find that ability to problem solve? Because I think that's the biggest thing. It's like you've lost that in the moment. It's like, I don't know what to do right now. This person is maybe, outclassing me on the court, or, I'm not running the race plan that I thought I needed to.
So hopefully that kind of gives you guys a better idea or surface level idea of what mental toughness is, what mental resilience is, and kind of how we go about that. But as we kind of wrap up, do you guys have any moments from your personal career where you felt like you've kind of had that mental toughness or resilience type of mindset?
I guess I'll start with a little story, I guess you can say.
Time.
Story time, yes.
Let's hear it.
I was playing college ball.
Baseball or football?
Oh, baseball. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Dual sport
within the
athlete.
game of baseball, guys will go through slumps. They'll go through, sometimes you'll go like 0 for 15 at the plate. Sometimes you'll be hitting like 500 or 600, like be really good, like a really hot stretch. But there was a part, I think my sophomore year in college, honestly probably even hit a beach ball if they threw it. Literally couldn't, probably went 0 for 17 to sort of start the year. And it's definitely a really big mental challenge to try to pull your mind out of that, of how the previous at-bats were going, and just kind of focus on the one coming up. And that was before, obviously, I was a mental performance coach, so there wasn't much positive. Yeah, there wasn't honestly really a clue on my end, how to really get through that. But I just, I look back upon that. I think in that moment, if I was able to more so just remove the previous at bats and not necessarily focus on them, but also at the same time, kind of going to the resiliency point, learn from what was going on instead of just second it went bad, just toss it aside, and the next one came up and went bad, toss it aside, just this continuous cycle. Learn from the previous ones and then move on to like kind of a new at bat. I feel like that type of mindset would have definitely benefited.
Staying hopeful.
Yeah, stayed hopeful too. Yeah, I think like that. I mean, just like every baseball, like eventually you go through one of those. So, if you're listening, you'll eventually like get out of a slump. You'll eventually get out of it. But I understand in the moment, it's not the easiest thing to ever like go through.
Sure.
So,
did you ever like change or do anything?
I probably should have asked. Yes, because I did eventually get a hit. I eventually did get out of it. Yeah, one thing I actually changed. I changed batting gloves, but one thing I think I changed was like, you know, we went on like a road trip like the weekend after, and honestly, it was more so like just like a screw it mentality. Like, I'm just gonna go up there and swing. I'm not even gonna think about it. Just like literally eliminate any thought I had at the plate and just swung and like put one down the line. I got a double, and I was like, all right, 1 for 19. I was like, yeah,
here it is.
Did a little like bow at second base too. This is great, but yeah, here it is. I feel like just not overthinking it. I just kind of went up there like, you know what, let's just swing and let's just see what happens here, just to get out of this funk. So
nice.
I remember seeing like a video with like Pete Rose, may he rest in peace now, but he was like, you know, never change your swing, because I think that's maybe what a lot of baseball players try to start doing is it's the swing. It's like, no, this swing has gotten you to this point for a reason, right? So like, you know, staying hopeful with that, but then he's like, what are the maybe tactical things? So he like step up in the box, back in the box, forward, back, choke up on the bat, but like not changing your swing. So I think that's something.
Yeah, do not change your swing.
Do not change your swing.
Don't do that.
It's gotten you to the point for a reason.
Yeah.
Unless you're, you know, listen to your coaches.
Yeah. I think my story with mental toughness or mental resilience was kind of my freshman year in college. I came off of an indoor season that was it was okay, but I ended up having an injury and I was out my whole outdoor season freshman year, and having to show up to practice and cross train and having to watch all of my teammates go to track meets every weekend and travel and do all of those things and go through the outdoor season, and all I was doing was just recovering from an injury. I think that really taught me how to stay like mentally in it and resilient, because I ended up coming back my sophomore year and having my best season ever off of that. And that was really, really tough to kind of go through freshman year. But I know that happens with a lot of athletes. A lot of times people kind of go through those periods of injuries, and being mentally tough doesn't just have to apply to in-game case scenarios, but even in situations like that, you can still stay mentally tough, mentally resilient, so when you come back, you're ready for it. So yeah, that's my story.
All right.
Sticking with it. Nice.
Yeah.
No, mine's gonna be a high school tennis match, because you know, you very much remember the time when you saved, like, it was a doubles match with my partner and Marcel. We were playing Barrington. I'll never forget it. We saved like 7 match points. And my entire like family was there. It was super cool to kind of have, you know, the support there. I think that probably helped us a little bit, which was nice. But also just, you know, I think eventually we got to the point where, you know, he's a very volatile player emotionally, can go highs and lows. I'm more even keeled. So I was making sure when we were in those moments, it's like, this is what we're gonna do. Like, this is where the ball is gonna go. This is the plan. Eventually, when you get to like deuce points, you kind of get to pick who's returning. It's like a sudden death point, basically. Wow. So it's horrifying at the same horrifying. So we're like, well, who's doing better on this side, or where's he been weaker serving to this side? So it was just cool, because at first I think we were just playing like, you know, with no intention whatsoever, and then that's what kind of got us, you know, start on the right path, was playing with intention and being mentally tough and saving these incredible match points and not making mistakes and just executing instead of, you know, not executing those moments, and eventually winning the match because of it, which was awesome. It's not like we saved 7 to eventually lose on the 8th one. It's like we finished on our first match point, which was awesome. Like, because it's tough. That's part of why the sport's so grinding, because that per team, you know, that we were playing against had 7 chances to win. And they didn't capitalize, and we got our 1 chance and we made the most of it. So it was definitely a mentally tough moment, because it was taxing. It was, you know, the most excited I think I've maybe been after a tennis match almost ever. So really cool kind of moments there. Do you remember?
So those are some of our stories with how we've dealt with or what we've gone through in our careers. But again, hopefully this episode gives you a good picture of mental toughness, mental resilience, and hopefully you guys have some takeaways from this that will help you with your journey in your sport. So we will see you guys next time.
And we'll get the intro right.
Go Bills.
Maybe.
If you like what you're listening to, be sure to follow the Athlete Cafe on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find us wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.